Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Figure It Out, or as I very lovingly like to call it now, FIO. So welcome to another episode of FIO. So today we're going to talk all about startups. If you want to start a startup, if you want to, join a startup, work in a startup, and to talk about it, I have a very good colleague, turned friend, come neighbor, Pari. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sajan. We're finally doing this. I'm so
Yeah,
happy.
finally. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm excited to do this because I've been a startup founder at one point, and we've had a lot of conversations on how startups should be, how the work culture
Yes.
and everything should be. So I hope this turns out like one of my favorite
I'm going
podcasts.
to go ahead and take the credit that I was a small seed in this FIO journey
Yeah,
where I
definitely.
definitely pushed you.
Arnab,
Yes.
in
But make
fact,
sure you'll be able to. This is not, this is cakewalk.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad that I've almost reached like 25 episodes so far. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. I was
so
supposed to be first, but
it's
ठीक
okay. है ना वो बड़ी बात है.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Chalo, so like we quickly run through like what you've done so far, your
Yeah.
work journey, what you're doing right now, etc.
So I've been working for almost 13 years now,
Okay.
13, 14 years. A lot of early gigs in, I think, random things until I kind
We
of.
all start like that.
Yeah, we all start like that. Until I landed into an agency.
Okay.
That was quite nice. I think I learned some things there.
Okay.
And then again, a couple of gigs in corporate side. I used to handle PR, I've done digital, all of that. Uh, until 2015, 2016, I started working purely in startups. That was my
Okay.
first startup. I was the 8th employee. Figured it out.
8th employee. Wow.
Yeah, I figured my role out. I, in fact, wrote my own JD.
Really?
Yeah, I wrote my JD and I trashed it in 3 days. So because I was doing other things apart from the JD, I'm like, this doesn't stand.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I did that, and it's been 2024 now. I've
Almost 10
still in,
years.
yes, still in startups, and I enjoy every second of it. So I think it's been a fruitful journey.
What all industries have you worked in?
Oh yeah, sure. So I've mainly worked in consumer facing businesses. In fact, the last couple of years has been pure play D2C.
Okay.
So fashion, food, furniture, beauty personal care, HPC, health personal care, and FMCG. So
He covered the whole spectrum.
yeah,
बचा है
yeah.
कुछ?
कुछ कुछ बचा नहीं है मैं अभी तक शायद. But yeah, I do enjoy FMCG and personal care genuinely. Market बड़ा है.
Yeah.
करने को बहुत कुछ होता है. So yes.
It'll never run out.
It'll never run out. So, but mainly my last couple of years has been pure play sales. I've run revenue teams. I've worked in e-com. I've worked in sales, offline, online, whatever it takes. I've handled P&L size of upwards of 20, 25 CR. I started as
Pretty
a chief
good.
of, yeah, it takes time, but
takes time, yeah.
it's been fun. So chief of staff roles and then other random designations, which I discount. I know 10 things out of the 100 things startups actually teach you. That's where I am.
Still only 10.
I still think it's only 10.
Wow.
There are some insanely smart people I get to work with or I will get to work with. So only 10.
Amazing. How different was it working in a corporate versus a startup?
Okay, so startup and corporates, okay, if you put them in two buckets, startups specifically are most probably founder led. You'll ideally get hired in the early or a mid stage.
Yeah.
So that kind of is still a startup where the founder is driving a lot of it. Speak to him or her, understand what she's building from the problem statement point of view, his or her behavior, cultural angle point of view, and your value addition. Let's say you get like a 40% pie of the 100% problem they're solving. It is actual meat. Go for it.
40% is a lot.
Is a lot. Is a lot.
I mean, you're the top management then.
Yes, go. No, not even top managed, right? In the early days, there is no management.
Yeah, I mean, that's more like a top management role that you'll probably be there when it gets. Yeah, exactly. I was coming to that. Yeah.
Ask for it. If you're able to understand this person is at an ABC level, okay, he's trying to go from here to somewhere. Let's say from 0 to 50. He needs the help.
Correct.
Go ahead and say, okay, I think you'll have to solve 3 problems in the next 6 months. Let me take up 2 of those.
Correct.
Go ahead and say that. Most founders, at least the ones I've met, have been very, very happy to hear that. and that's how you close a startup.
So that's like, that's closing a startup. But my question is, why would a person join a startup, or why should they not?
Okay, sure. So startups and corporates, two
Yeah.
different buckets. Startups specifically are very, very individual led. I
Correct.
know as a person that I'm
Yeah.
very ambitious, or
Yeah.
I'm a go getter. A
Correct.
startup will actually give me a better speed of growth.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
speed of growth is in a startup bucket. In corporate, of course, there is that designation. There's probably more salary and more stability. And I think I'm not discounting the learning, but the learning is also very linear, right?
Linear. Correct.
Maybe you know 5 new skills in a year, but I'm telling you, my experience and most of the friends and people I work with, experience is like we know 50 things in a year
Yeah.
or more. So if you're over optimizing for learning, go for a startup.
And growth.
But
it's also high risk, high rewards, right?
100%. But isn't life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it should be high risk, high reward, because then everybody's going to do it. It's the math doesn't add up.
Absolutely.
Not discounting it. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that a corporate job is going to bore you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But its startup job is actually going to give you thrill of like हर रोज ऑफिस जाने का एक्चुअल मन करेगा is what I personally feel, and I'll say if I get 100 people I work with,
I know how
at least
excited you are in the morning to go to work. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so like moving on, like corporate, I think we can summarize it like corporate. You take up for a steady kind of a role where there is a linear growth. Like say that कि तुमको 2 साल बाद 1x 2x growth मिलेगा. Startup, it's you put in this much, you get that much. At least almost every time you get that much. Sometimes, yeah.
See, it'll backfire also, right?
Yeah.
Like, because now, especially this word has become over abused, the startup
Yeah,
word.
exactly.
Everybody can't be a startup.
Correct.
Startup also has some kind of, I would say, a checklist.
I was going to come to that question.
Oh, lovely.
So, if someone is starting a startup, how should they go about, formulating that venture, right? What are the steps they need to take? What are the questions they need to ask themselves? What are the, I would say factors that they need to solve for?
Primary, most important solve is individual level, right? Startups is blood and sweat. It's 24 hours, 365 days. There are no holidays for founders. I'm telling you, there are no holidays for the top 10 employees, the startup hires. Okay. So that's one thing you
You'll
accept.
probably be chilling in Thailand beach pe. There'll be a call. Udhar laptop leke baithna padega.
No, I don't think there is going to be a Thailand. So यहाँ से 1 घंटे की गोवा फ्लाइट में चला गया तो भी भगवान मालिक.
You'll. I think I've been there. So in that 1 hour also you'll be anxious. अरे कुछ फटना नहीं चाहिए.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, so accept that. If you've accepted that, great. So step 1. Step 2, are you solving for a real problem, right?
Correct.
So sometimes you can see there are so many fashion startups, so many jewelry startups, right? But they also need a moat, right? What am I building? If I'm building a pure, clean black shirt, it's a problem statement for, let's say, 50 people in this building.
Correct.
I need to understand if the addressable market, which I call the TAM, is decently big enough that, let's say I am good at it or I tackle it, I'll be able to service it.
Correct.
That's how I would say you should start as a founder.
So basically, address the problem. Your why needs to be strong. Why are you doing this?
Yes, your why needs to be strong enough for yourself. The why needs to be strong enough for what you're
for the scaling of the business also. Yeah.
Correct.
If your why isn't strong enough, you'll get stuck at one point.
Yes, you will, and you'll get stuck sooner.
In 6 months.
In 6 months, dukaan band.
Which happens to a lot of people.
A lot of, yeah. I've run a startup for 2 years. I understand the ups, downs, mediums, lows, everything. It's just hard.
So second is understanding the why you're solving a problem, like what problem you're solving. Then what do you do?
So after your problems are solved, you probably have to figure things, right? Like same like a corporate job, break it down, right? There is sales.
Correct.
Okay. There is finance.
Correct.
There is hiring, right?
Right.
And then there is operations.
I think hiring के अंदर ये सब आ जाएगा ना.
हाँ, but ये सारे pillars है. जब
you understand the departments.
Yes.
And then hire for each one of them.
Hire for each one of them if you can afford it. Let's say you've raised funding, so you can probably afford 2-3 people or 4 people.
Correct.
If you've raised very good funding, then you can go hire for 15 people. Or unfortunately you haven't. Then you'll probably get to hire only 1 or 2 people, and that 1 or 2% should be somebody who is as entrepreneur in nature like you.
Yeah.
That's where probably a person like me came in, because I have done one chief of staff role, one EIR role, where the
What's an
founder,
AIR?
it's an entrepreneur in residence, a cool word, but
सीधा
it's,
सीधा बोलने का ना, ऐसे jargon क्यों?
it
It's a fancy-
exists.
Yeah,
It
fair.
exists. I'm putting it out there because
Yeah.
it's an exciting role. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what it usually does. Let's say you're a founder, you can afford a 1% salary.
Yeah.
I'm able to match it. I'm somebody who's zealous, who would like to start their own startup, somebody ambitious, understands the problems you're solving, and I'm
Correct.
resonating with you.
Correct.
I should be ideally that one person will be able to trust.
Yeah.
In the early days, it's not a CEO. It's just one
So
person.
you are kind of like a co-founder at some point.
Yeah.
Like you're the right hand.
I'm the right
you're the
hand.
go-to person.
Yeah, I'm the go-to or the right hand person. That's how an EIR usually functions.
Okay.
That's one part of it. When, let's say, the startup starts scaling, this EIR usually picks up a problem statement. Let's say more revenue from calls,
and then runs with it
and
and
scales
does
it up.
whatever it takes to get it.
Correct. So his job is also building the revenue stream. His job is also scaling up. His job is also optimizing for that.
Also
P&L
hiring, everything,
Also hiring,
everything,
everything.
whatever it
It's a
takes.
one unit job for that company ka one section.
He's like a proxy for the actual founder.
Yes, he's a proxy for the actual founder. I think that's the best word.
Yeah.
It's very hard to find people like this, but once you do now, I think it's a two-way street. The founder needs to really be appreciative, and you should be appreciative of this
in the sense of money as well as.
Yeah, see, money, of course, I won't discount it at all. Money is definitely there, but also the amount of work you'll be able to scale up. Correct. Or do.
Give him or her the resources, the people, the money to the war chest basically.
Yeah, correct.
To go out and achieve the target.
All the arsenal required is should be provided.
Yeah.
And then these people are really gems, like really. So, I've worked with so many EIRs myself. So
let's come back. First is understanding the why. Second is the hiring thing and the people, the department. So do you wanna I think hiring, personally to me, I think hiring is where every startup makes a mistake.
Yeah, I've hired so many people in my life. I can give you thoda gyan.
I think we can talk a little bit about hiring, how important it is. What should you hire? Why? Whom should you not hire?
Sure. So in a startup, ideally, let's say we'll take examples. So
right.
0 to 15, right? At 0 to 15, the founder needs to hire each and every person himself, because the culture hasn't been set.
0 to 15 people, right? That's
people. 0 to 15 people.
Correct.
So 0 to 15 people, the founder has to ideally interview and hire himself.
Correct.
To get the first layer of culture right. Because he is going to be the onset of the culture, but the first 5 or 10 people will kind of trickle it down. That culture can be anything, right? The culture can be
they'll be the cultural proxy of the founders.
Yes, 100%. They need to be on the same page.
Correct.
The culture can be how do we look at our vendors. The culture can be how do we look at junior resources.
Correct.
Culture can be anything. It has to be pretty
culture can be simply like a flexible work hours.
Trust. How much do I trust my own team?
Correct, exactly.
Yeah. So all of that. So first 15 employees, I would recommend, or I think most founders would also recommend, go hire yourself. Be very sure. And I think after 15 also, I worked in a startup where the founder was hiring till the 70th or the 60th employee, which is fabulous, right? He's one of the stellar employers I've ever worked with. So there are those cases, but it's okay. If you, let's say I hired Sajan as an EIR, I trust him to hire the next 10. So
you are basically talking about, nowhere have I heard about the skills. You are looking for a person with intention is what I'm coming to.
Yes. Critical. I need to be able to, let's say I'm a founder, I need to be able to sell you my story. Correct. If you bought my story and understand it, you have a larger intent of it. Number second comes the skill set.
Correct. Okay. So skills are secondary. People just keep getting these certificates and random things, and they think that they are eligible for a job, but no. No, not in a startup. According to me, not corporate.
In a
probably you'll get it.
Corporate, maybe, yes. I'm not the right person to kind of comment on corporates anymore.
Not enough experience on that, or what they're doing right now, because it's been
70% of my career has been in a startup. So I would like to actually learn about corporate.
I'll get someone else on for that. No, but okay. So startups, yes. First is definitely the intent. Second is your skill set, and Is there a
first is
third?
intent, second is skill set,
Is there a third?
and third is the problem solving capabilities, right? Because even if I, let's say, SEO as a skill set, right, I have a skill set to run SEO, but if I run into a problem related to SEO or in and around that, I should be able to largely problem solve.
Correct.
That's very natural to some people, and some people build it as a rhythm by working.
Yeah.
Right. So these are the three things at least I look for. Hiring is very temperamental also, right? Sometimes it works out, sometimes even if I have all the ticks, it does not work out.
So why would you reject someone?
Okay, I would reject somebody. I personally reject someone if I can't see hard work second nature to them.
Okay.
And I'm able to kind of capture it.
Now let's talk about if you're recruiting me.
Yeah.
And I'm applying for a startup. What should I be looking forward to, or how should I go about the negotiations?
Firstly, let's say, best case scenario, you're in an economy where you have the opportunity to negotiate all the line items. I'm going to give it for that scenario. So number one, of course, talk to the founder on his logic.
What if the founder is not like you?
Not the
interviewee.
Sure. So talk to your hiring manager and try to understand his or her vision of why they joined the startup or what they are building.
So you can question.
Go ahead and question. In startups, you must question, because once you question, you've also built your own intent, and the other party also knows that the intent is built.
इतना पूछ रहा है
मतलब इसको इंटरेस्ट है, आगे जा सकते, अभी वो स्किल वाला क्वेरी पूछते हैं, करेक्ट, क्योंकि स्किल इज नॉन नेगोशिएबल, बट इंटेंट तो चाहिए ना.
एंड आल्सो स्किल्स आर ट्रांसफरेबल
ऑलवेज.
You can learn skills.
Yes, even in corporates, actually. Somebody was telling me about transferable skills in corporates. They worked in the same brand role for 3 years. Now they are going to probably get a hand at sales. It is transferable.
Also, what are the hiring mistakes that startups do?
Okay,
overhiring. If I may be blunt, like about overhiring.
Oh yeah. Sometimes they just overhire. See what happens sometimes. Let's say a startup picks up, right? Like a lot of press, or some campaigns do well, and I'm like, oh, you to scale ho raha hai. Let's go ahead and hire. You overhire for that same role, 3-4 people, 5 people, or even sometimes 10 people
to manage the workload.
Which is great. The help is always needed, but sometimes what happens that one person who was gunning ki yaar ye to is pe main lead banunga, ye mera ownership hai, this is my piece of the pie, as I've been saying, he or she who is the biggest,
will get demotivated.
He gets demotivated, and he's actually doing the larger part. Like, he's technically managing these people without even having the designation to do that.
Correct.
So those people get motivated or demotivated. A lot of good people leaving because they are demotivating. I think that's one thing founders need to understand.
You are the perfect example.
I think you and me are a decent enough example. Not perfect. I've seen more.
People who know us will understand what we mean by this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. No, so they get demotivated as one, and also I think they overhire because they kind of estimate that it is going to grow, and they hire more. Is that the case?
That's one case. And there is also a visibility angle in some startups I've seen. Ki, okay, I have 100 employees or I have 80 employees, that I'm raising Series A, I'm raising Series B. You probably can do the same XYZ amount of work at 80 employees.
Right.
So that's a math actually you need to do as a founder.
If you're not good at it, hire someone to do it for you. Like, that's where the consultancy people come into the picture.
Sure, you can get those, but again, they take a lot of margin on every individual they help you hire.
That's why their salaries are like 30-40 lakhs. For just faffing.
And also, I don't think, see, in the early stage,
no offense to consultants, whoever's listening.
In the early stage of startups now, the best storytelling is through founders and these EIRs I've been mentioning. They get the story, they're passionate. Passion ko replace nahi kar sakte.
So you need passion. Startups is all about passion.
Maza aata hai. Socho na, like,
you're building something.
I told you, right, mujhe subah utke kaam karna tha. I'm very passionate. And the day I'm not now is actually alarming for myself, and I decide to move on because I am in this for myself.
Correct. So moving on, like, my next part is, you mentioned about raising fundings quite a few times. How does one go about, like, okay, so hired, I've decided my why and everything. How do I raise funds now?
Okay. So there are two, three things on fundraising with startups, right? It's a very controversial topic. There are a lot of
Your experience.
okay, my experience. I've only worked with consumer startups who've always raised fundings because unfortunately, the CAC is high, which
Yeah.
is cost of acquisition of a user coming
Correct.
onto a website or coming and bothering to purchase with me is
Bothering
high.
to pitch.
Yeah. I think I want to give my customers the respect that they're going to
Yeah.
bother to spend that 2 minutes to
Absolutely.
complete the checkout. I give them that
Yeah,
respect.
and spend that money on me.
And they spend that money on me. So the CAC is high.
Yeah.
So all of that actually requires a lot of capital. So
Yeah.
at least the consumer experiences I have had have always been fundraise startups.
Mhm.
But I also have heard of and know some who've been able to do a very early, I wouldn't say around, but like, okay, Sergeant, can you help me with 5 lakh rupees? I'm building XYZ. A friend who kind of knows how passionate you
Correct.
are. So all of that has also helped.
Okay.
But I am
So
not
start at home first.
Start
See
at home.
around you if you how much you need, and then like decide if any of your peers can give you that much.
Yeah. That
And in turn, you give them equities.
you can, or you can actually take
Just
it
take
as a
a loan.
loan at
Yeah.
a very nominal kind of,
That's a one-on-one conversation that the person can have.
it's a very one-on-one
So
conversation.
the first side is you
So there are stages of fundraising.
Correct.
Okay, very simply, let's say you need the funds. Mostly you will. So you need the funds. Start at pre-seed.
Yeah.
Pre-seed is where I go to Sajan, my friend, my neighbor, my dad, my mom, and say, please, I need to build a 20 lakh pool to do XYZ.
Correct.
So that XYZ ideally is hiring your first employee, building your operations, prototype, your website, all of that, and build some momentum in sale.
Correct.
Let's say you've been able to do the first quarter with a decent enough growth. In startups, they look at a percentage growth, double digit or triple digit on the best case scenario.
ज़्यादा हो रहा है.
ज़्यादा हो रहा है. So whatever, double digit is a great place to be.
Yeah.
For example, okay, and your logic was कि अच्छा ये XYZ number आ जाएगा, I'll be able to think little bigger.
Correct.
So let's say now you're in the second layer, which is seed.
Correct.
Need a little more money. That's where you should like sub 50 lakhs, sub 40, 50
But
lakhs.
But also depending on the nature of your business.
Nature
right?
of your business. I'm talking about consumer businesses, which I understand.
अगर कोई मेडिकल वगैरह रहेगा वो तो
Yeah.
5-10 करोड़ चाहिए रहेगा
Correct,
तुमको.
correct. वो depend करता है.
Correct.
तो उस stage पे you can go back to the same people. Then you can start actually reaching out to these super early stage investors. There are types of investors.
How do you reach them?
A lot of ways. I think I'll tell you the hacky ways.
Yeah. Hacky ways
is the best. Go ahead and find these lists online. Go ahead and do
What
that.
lists are these?
What are these lists? So these are investors in early stage startup. Go ahead and in the news section, go a startup you're probably looking at as competitor, or anybody else who's in this space.
Yeah.
Unke investors kaun hai?
But won't that be a conflict of interest?
Not really. Not really. Go ahead. Go ahead and find those people. There are going to be 5 names there.
Right.
The big names, the small names, some names. Get that list. Make actual list. Excel sheet. Start reaching out. Okay, hey,
how do you find their coordinates?
I do blind reach outs at LinkedIn. I see if Sajan knows someone. If I know someone who knows.
So you do
that
cold messaging on LinkedIn?
Yeah, cold messaging on LinkedIn. At this stage, 100% go ahead and do
I'd heard that someone just also tried this. It somehow worked. That you take the name and at the rate the company name, sometimes it goes through.
Yeah, and
as an email.
One tip, I think sometimes even first name and surname works out.
Yeah, first name dot surname.
Yeah.
First name at the rate.
Stalk them on LinkedIn. Find what they do. See, sometimes even Facebook profiles you can find. I don't know the today's time, but something like that. There are a lot of lists online. You'll easily get at least 15 names.
So first is, I think, summarize it. Do your research. Make a consolidated list of names that you think can be potential investors.
Yes.
Who've invested recently also.
Yeah, because I'm talking about super thrifty way of fundraising, right? Correct. There's a little, I would say, a suave way of doing it now.
Suave way, wow.
Because there are second-time founders, or you've probably worked in startups, right? So in my case, let's say if I decide to start up something, I am going to start with my old boss or my old founders and say, hey, this is my XYZ idea. Let's say best case scenario, they like the idea. They can self-invest, or they can connect me to somebody, because usually
so your ex-bosses, the people you worked with in the past.
Yeah, the work
Is there any
experience.
like agencies and all you can approach and be like, help me with
Yes,
it?
there are a lot of agencies who help in fundraising.
Okay.
You can literally go to them, but you should be able to afford them also. So I am giving you a thrifty
They
method.
charge.
Of course, they charge. They
How
charge.
much do they charge commission on
They
the?
charge on the deal, but some now, because now startups have become a cooler word, they also charge in deal hunting.
Oh, okay.
So that means they will build
regardless of whether you
they'll build your financial model. They will
so regardless of whether or not you get the funding, you still have to pay them.
something, yes. They'll charge you in some other line item. They'll call ki we'll help you streamline your financial model or finesse it so that it's worthy enough to even go to a.
So there are three streams what I can summarize. One is your own research. You go out and find these names and
talk to people, reach out to people, cold email, cold message. Worst case scenario, which is going to happen, 99% rejection rate है इसमें. कोई रिस्पॉन्स नहीं आएगा, कुछ नहीं आएगा. शायद तुमने 100 लोगों को हाय बोला, उसमें से एक ऐड हुआ. ओके, एक ऐड होने के बाद उसके नेटवर्क में जाओ, उसको ढूंढो, और 100 बार ये चीज करो, और 100 बार ये चीज. It's a big chain.
It's a big chain. It's not going to be easy. Like,
Yeah.
People have this thing that startup bana liya, funding raise kar denge. It's tough.
Fundraising is extremely hard. The ones who are able to do it are, I'm really appreciative of how well some people do it, and so how hard it is for some people, right? Fundraising is hard. Being in an operator run role is also very hard, right? Like, let's say you're fundraising, we are co-founders, you're fundraising. My job is to run the startup, to hire. My role
At the same
is
time,
also,
when you're trying to raise the funds, the startup should continue and still scale.
correct. And that means you should have trust on your co-founders.
Yeah,
So
or
all
that
of
EIR.
or the EIR.
Yeah. I'm stuck on that EIR now. I'm going to use that a lot now.
It is a real world. So actually, a funny story on EIR, they actually started in the US, where
Okay.
a lot of investors needed deal management and doing a lot of tasks, while they were concentrated at key, okay, should I finalize this startup or that startup to invest in simple, crude language. They ended up hiring EIRs who do the problem solving for them, get them the 3 best deals.
Yeah.
So the actual investor can only decide yes or no. This is what an EIR ended up doing.
Right. Fair. I think I'm just gonna the last part of this podcast. I think what I want to talk about is you've got the funding, you've had the right people, you have the vision, you have the product, you have everything now. How do you make a startup profitable?
What a hard question, yeah. What a hard question.
In the end, that's business, right?
Yes.
For me, I come from a generation of seeing people that unless and until you're doing a plus in the tally, your business is useless.
True, I agree. I also understand that much math.
Yeah. I mean, if it's in negative,
yeah.
I was reading the other day that Zomato has been bankrupted 6 times and still people are praising it for its business. I mean, what kind of business model is this that you go bankrupt 6 times and people are still appreciating the model? Right? I think the idols are misplaced these days. Let's talk about how can you turn a startup profitable.
So I'll simply tell you a basic math, irrelevant of your business being B2C or B2B. Understand every single line item on a P&L, which is a profit and loss statement.
Correct.
It's usually made for the whole business.
Yeah.
But in a good scenario, it's made for every single revenue generating stream inside the larger business.
Okay.
Let's say Sarjan owns one, I own one, someone else owns one. So there are 3 different P&Ls to a larger business level P&L.
Okay.
Start optimizing, I would say bottom up.
Optimizing is a very abused term.
I'm not going to use it.
Yeah. So identify where, deep dive into.
Yeah. Deep dive into individual revenue generating P&Ls, B2B, B2C.
Whatever it is.
Whatever. Okay. Yeah. It can be something as simple as raw materials kahan se aa raha hai?
How many tissue papers you're using in your office?
How many, sure.
Why not? I mean, if you can optimize that also. I mean, it might save you some money.
So simply put, who's your vendor? What raw material are you using?
Correct.
Can you find a better vendor for it? Of course, not compromising on quality.
Absolutely.
Are you using some agencies which can come in 1/4 of the cost at the same quality?
Correct.
Again, these are small things you can do. Apart from that, is your margin definitely confirmed with the party you're working with? Talk more on the margins. Let's say you've shown scale in the 3 months. Both the parties are happy. Go back to the party and say, ki, let's talk about reducing the margin or something else. Then there is
And growing the business,
yeah,
lesser the
there is
margin.
there are a lot of other small things which are always open for negotiation
Correct.
because you're also scaling.
So you constantly renegotiate.
I'm renegotiating at every line item I'm owning. That's my job as an EIR, and the founder's job is to negotiate with me also. Ki I have to do this.
Correct.
And
To
also
keep pushing you also.
Yeah, to keep pushing me to do a better job in optimizing and gaining profitability at one line item, because it's not going to happen. It's
So
not.
That's, I think, a good way to look at it.
Example of Zomato, what it probably must be doing, must be looking at its delivery business or
Correct.
delivery cost. It might be looking at their courier business.
Correct.
And the other line items they have in their the Zomato app. They must be optimizing one, whoever that owner must be, and solving for it at a larger business level.
Yeah.
It is a complex problem.
It is a very complex problem. It is probably going to take a lot of time to get there.
And a lot of time, it needs people with ownership to kind of go for the challenge.
Do you think most of the startups will achieve profitability, or will they just list their company and exit?
I am seeing that happen a lot more.
That's why
now.
this question.
I don't know, yeah. There are some really nice startups which have reached profitability, but they've not picked up on scale, right? So you have to
also solve for that scalability issue.
Some people are just too ambitious ki scale hi chahiye. I want XYZ as a founder.
Right.
Uske khud ke motivations hote hain. And the other side ki, hey, I'm okay with a I don't know, 30 crore business, but it has to be profitable, which is what we should ideally go for. But because now startup is such an over-abused word, everybody wants to.
It's also like that dreamland everyone wants to own.
Yeah. It's that unicorn ki yaar ye ho gaya to wo hoga. Correct. So no right or wrong answer.
Boond boond se sagar banta types.
Correct.
You focus on one thing at a time. I feel like solve for one thing, move on to the next. Move on. Move on.
Yeah.
Perfect. So a sub question to this profitability section that we're talking about. How do you go about deciding a price point for your product or service? What are the things that you need to keep in mind when you're deciding a price point? See, you will obviously look at, say, my cost of production is this much, or my cost of service is this much. How many things do you need to factor into, say, I need to keep an X percentage as a margin so that I don't go into negative even if I'm giving discounts?
There's no right or wrong answer. First of all, everybody will give you a different view. But simply put, just do just see the cost of your acquisition or your sales.
Correct.
Look at your other operational costs, from logistics to, if it's a consumer business, it's logistics to people cost, all of that.
Correct.
See if you can load that cost onto the, the final selling price to the customer. And then also I would say keep some margin of error.
Right? Yeah, I was coming to that. Like, if you
so
might,
like in usually what I understand in D2C startups, at least a markup at 3.5 to 5x range.
Okay.
Sometimes even higher.
Because you can come lower, you can't go higher than that.
Correct. So you can come lower, and sometimes we do go through these bad months of extremely high CAC.
Right.
And then there are good months to kind of recover.
Right.
And then when you're scaling now, you have to be very, very aggressive. That time you can't change your vendor or do superlative changes.
You can't tweak around your logistics a lot. You have to keep it as a very streamlined, very
simple
smooth
answer, at least in a D2C, somewhere around
4 to 5.
3 to 5x kind of a.
Correct.
Yeah.
So 3 is minimal, 5 is depending on the premium also that you're offering as. 5, I mean, if my cost price is 100, if I'm selling that at 500, I need to have that kind of a value
addition. Yeah.
Right. That is where the founder's vision, the why.
Yeah.
I think it all comes.
The why also trickles down to that, but usually itna to chahiye haath mein.
Correct. नहीं तो business कैसे चलाएंगे?
Correct.
Right.
I'm not the right person to answer for B2B.
But I think that's a pretty much good enough range that you mentioned, that you factor in all your overheads, you factor in all your expenses, your
margin of miscellaneous.
Correct, exactly. And then you factor in, say, it somewhere boils down to like 4x or 5x. Some businesses it might be, I guess, 10x also.
100%.
Yeah. So 100%. I think in the nature of the business also is very important.
Yeah, like food businesses, for example, are able to charge a much larger premium for, let's say, a ramen. A bowl of ramen shouldn't cost you more than X, but it's always
it's the
X
premium,
plus,
it's the taste that you're
it's the taste, or it's the umami experience, whatever needs
you go
to be.
to like
So
5
food
stars,
businesses
800 rupees ka pani puri khate hai public.
Yeah.
I mean, I have it and I got like 30 bucks over here, but people do pay. So
Yeah.
people do pay. People are willing to pay
Yeah.
if the premium is, and if the values, if they're getting that
If
experience.
the value resonates with your user,
Correct.
That premium can be changed as soon as 2 months or as long as 3 years.
I saw this recently. There was this paper clip by Prada for $400.
Yeah.
I mean, and people are still going to buy it.
The Balenciaga jackets.
Yeah.
How do you?
How I cannot ever justify buying that.
Even if you can afford it, the logic doesn't add up.
Yeah, but people still buy it because it resonates the values with them, right? So you can charge a premium. Yes. As long as the values resonate with the
some fashion brands are at upwards of 20x premium also. Yeah. Which is like the best case scenario, but.
So I think you decide that when you are trying to solve that why.
Yeah, correct. You decide that when you're trying to solve for your why, right? In your why, you'll kind of identify who's my end user. My end user can be a kirana.
Correct.
My end user is a mass market customer sitting in a tier 2 city.
Correct.
It can be a tier 1 city. So according to that, I have kind of understood this is my range of markup. इसी के हिसाब से मुझे pricing करना पड़ेगा. So that's primary. Secondary, now what you'll do is you'll identify कि अच्छा ये cogs है, ये operation cost है, अच्छा इतने लोग लगेंगे, तो उसका math. और तीसरा मैं compulsorily बोलती हूँ एक miscellaneous slab डाल दो, पता नहीं कब क्या फटेगा. And of course your sales and cost of acquisition, all of that.
Equipment expenses. You might need to open a store someday.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, you know, anything can happen. So miscellaneous is definitely a good field to have. नहीं हुआ तो भी अच्छा है, तुम्हारे profit में आ रहा है.
Yeah, but always start with who your user is and what he or she is ideally willing to pay. And in your best case scenario, how much that willing to pay increases.
Correct.
Or how much you can
decrease it.
And usi range mein rehna is the healthiest way to do it. Right. A lot of us, you, me, both of us have probably made that mistake.
Yeah.
And it's not a guarantee that we won't make it in the future because of obviously hunger to grow.
Hunger to grow. Yeah, you keep wanting to make more money and make more people buy your stuff.
And also, correct. That's more, right? The number of users has become such a big terminology now.
How many purchases happened this month?
What
is
your
orders?
MAU and what is your DAO has become such an important thing. For people who don't know what that is, which is monthly active users and daily active users, which a lot of startups care about. Our investors care about it.
Some vendors also, they ask you, how many hits do you have on your website? They question us now.
Yes. They're asking for traffic now. Yeah.
I think vendors are questioning. So I mean, it's a very weird.
Vendors are also doing something very funny, like, oh, he's selling that product. मैं उस brand को बेचता हूँ, आपको दे दूँगा कम में करके.
Yeah, that's
also happening.
That's happened with me.
Yes.
So it's very important to protect
reverse economy हो गया ये.
And also very important to protect your IPs. I feel, patent them, copyright them, whatever you need to just get them.
Best case scenario. Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Amazing chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed doing what I do daily with you.
We recorded it.
In a format.
I think I'm pretty sure we have more unfiltered chats off camera.
Yeah. I feel this might also be unfiltered.
Yeah, this was unfiltered, but I think if we record those chats, we'll both be out of jobs or we'll get
sued. We won't ever be hired.
We'll get sued.
We won't get hired. I have other worries.
Yeah, our future is in jeopardy. No, perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for tuning in. And if you have any questions, queries, please feel free to comment in the comment section or DM me. I can relate to Pari. She'll be tagged. You can, reach out to her on LinkedIn or something and she'll be happy to solve, I'm hoping.
I would happy to solve.
If she replies, she's very bad at staying in touch. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Take care. Cheers.